numbers in it, so I know you did the calculation.
Because of the way you do your multiplication, you have your numbers gone, so I'll still say. That's probably like who to get it for, I guess. I can't find it.
But I just want to write here. Like I said, everyone's gonna go back and those numbers that we put up there and then.
There, we're back now.
Got my old one.
Yeah, we thought about doing that. We also thought about trying to.
Okay.
We're back now. Profit.
It's only 10 minutes away, right?
A few minutes to us is eternity to us.
Yeah, you're right.
Thought about it.
We're there.
Yeah, because it's not old computer, which is
Drove around 3 hours Sunday.
Probably get this. We don't fill any generation.
So we got this case study. It's Pagoda is a made-up company that does internet services. So if you look at the back, they advertise, but their goal is not lowest cost. Their goal is highest quality. So they're trying to give you where your website doesn't crash. You can get your email, and if you have a problem, you got a good tech support. So they feel like one of their core competencies is their quality and their high tech support, their online help desk. So they've got some data in the case study about they handle 800,000 requests a year. They could handle up to 900,000, and they've got a staff that does this. Online help staff that does this. Down here they describe they got 40 employees, $40,000 a year, 3 supervisors, 70,000. Their PCs, 2,000, 20 of them, 1,000 a year for variable costs, $1.50 per request. And so they've got a bunch of data which they'll show in the Excel spreadsheet where they're setting up the cost of this help desk. And then they say, look, we could outsource it to India at $1.5 million per year, and then at 50 cents per request. So the question is, should they outsource this? So the first piece of it is just the economic analysis. All right. So and they got a series of questions. Total cost of outsourcing, what other factors, should they do it, and what would you do if you did a contract? So the first thing they're looking at is just the cost. Let me shrink that down just a hair. Widen that so we can see it. There, okay. So they're setting up the data. They've got the 40 workers, their salaries. They've got the 3 supervisors, their salaries. They've got the servers at $2,000 each, 4 of them, 20 PCs at $1,000. So you can see they're adding everything up. They've got the variable cost, which was $1.50 per request, times the 800,000 requests. I think that's how they're doing that, right? So that should be times the C7, yeah. And so the total cost for their in-sourced help desk is $3 million. Now they go down to the outsourcing. It was $1.5 million plus 50 cents per request. So the total cost is $1.9 million. So they compare that to that, and they say, "Oh, we're saving $1.1 million." So economically, it's it's easy. I would say 30%, over 30%, yeah, cheaper by more than $1 million. So clearly, economically, it makes sense. Easy calculation. Now, the rest of the thing though is, to me, I should blow that up. Quality is a big deal, and in the case of this outsourcing thing, I think in the help desk, I think that's a big deal. If you wanted to do it, you could do a weighted analysis and make support your decision. But their whole business is they're not low cost. They're trying to be a high quality provider. And if they throw this help desk to India and they lose control of their help desk, they get dissatisfied customers, those kind of things. They're changing their business. They're moving into the low-cost world, and they may lose their entire business. And so their answer is don't outsource. And I think that's the right answer in this case, because this is a core piece of your business, and you're likely to mess it up. Now, if you did choose to outsource because you just have to save the money, you probably should have some sort of metric on how quickly they turn help requests around, how many repeats they get, how many times you got to go back to satisfy the ticket, and some sort of customer satisfaction survey so that you can track and see what's going on and prevent, this bad vector from happening. And I think that makes perfectly good sense. So that's the case study. Based on our time, let me look at it before I do a couple more problems. Well, I should do at least one, because I did ask you to do several of them. No, okay, no, I don't want to already open that. I didn't realize I already had it open. There, because it's on the same thing. One of the ones we looked at that I asked you to do for homework is one of those. Is one of these like Conan the electrician. Well, actually, I forgot. This problem is that. So what they said on this problem, suppose Conan gets a lot better. Remember, his quality was really bad. So suppose he works hard, goes through training courses, improves his quality. What happens to your decision? And so you can see how they've set this up. It's very easy. You've got your weights and your rankings, and it's just the product of each of these and the sum. And so Conan wins then when he improves his quality. There's another command you might want to use if you're doing this in Excel, just for learning something. The sum product command. You can select two columns and do a sum product, and it'll do it for you. So you don't even have to form the product and do the sum. It's actually it's a simple command, so you may want to use that. And then you can see how, if we return back to his poor quality, he loses, or like we said, if we go ahead and go up here and rate price to be the bulk of it, you totally influence the results. I still make Conan win if I, and so that's always the danger with these things. All right, so let me look at these two papers before we do any more of these. So here was supply chain trends. Okay, and we'll look at this real quickly, but I thought it was interesting. So this is Hitachi, and the date on it, was 2009. Yeah, okay. So they're talking about 6 trends in supply chain management. So one easy way to look at them real fast is look at their table of contents. These are their 6 trends: demand planning, globalization, increased competition, outsourcing, life cycle, and collaboration. And then they conclude by how does technology influence all these, basically the IT discussion. But you can see, so this is 5 years ago basically. They're not mentioning green, and they're not mentioning disruption, the two trends that were mentioned in our thing. They do, though, focus on outsourcing, which is one of the focuses in this chapter. And so there was a couple of things I wanted to show you on this, so I'll go through it quickly. Let's see here. Let's see. There's their 6 choices, and they go through each one. And let's see, is this the one? No, this is not. It's one that's got okay. So they do kind of have this quadrant thing that they're talking about. Same sort of thing about how you're where you put your products. What is it you're outsourcing? And then here, life cycle. They're saying one of the drivers is shorter life cycles, shorter product life cycles, which is important. Let's see. Collaboration. We've said this now. It's a competition between supply chains. And let's see what was. What was the one thing I wanted to point out? Oh yeah, here. This was the one that said, look, communication and understanding where your parts are important. So under the technology, the RFID tracking and your IT were important because if you don't know where things are, you can't act on it. So let's see. I thought this was a paper that had the 3% thing in it. But anyway, one of the big ones they mentioned was outsourcing. So I got another paper here on supply chain outsourcing because I thought this was interesting. So here they were looking at outsourcing public health activities in developing countries, so in third world countries. And what this paper is, it's basically a tutorial on, okay, you're a developing country, you've got some real challenges in distributing your health, whether it's medicines and aid, those kind of things. You're getting more aid than you can deal with. Here's a tutorial on how you can outsource this, okay? Which I thought was interesting, but the good thing about it is if you look through the tutorial, and it's a huge tutorial, it's 50-some pages. We don't want to do that right now. And if you go through it, they got when should you do it? How do you do it? Here's the steps. And I wanted to show you some of the steps. They got acronyms. It's a typical government report, but if you go through it, let me get down this way. And so they're saying you may need to outsource, but there's a lot of sensitivity to it. But when you go down and start talking, one of the things they started talking about outsourcing in the medical world, hey, you've got things you've got to keep cold, you've got to distribute them on time, cross-docking like we've talked about before, the logistics. But when you get down here, they give a couple of examples of successes trying to motivate and encourage people to do this. But let's see, what I was going to get to, yeah. Okay, so they start looking at figures in here. When do you want to outsource? The same sort of thing we had in this chapter. What are the advantages and disadvantages of outsourcing? And so one of the wins are when you don't have the skills, when you have limited resources, when your demand is variable. You may find that you need to outsource to support what you're doing. So this is the same sort of figure we had in our chapter, but the other figure I wanted to show you is down here in a minute. But then they go into the same point on how do you make a decision. Well, it's a dollar-based decision often, and one of the things government agencies use as opposed to just straight dollars, they'll use a cost-benefit analysis. And if the benefits are larger than the cost, good. And you just take a ratio, and if the ratio is greater than 1, okay, rather than trying to look at a dollar amount and a rate of return. And part of the reason they do this is, government agencies do this, is sometimes there's a lot of discussion that goes in to decide what's a benefit and what's not. The classic example they talk about is like, the government agency decides to build a dam. Well, okay, it's going to generate electricity. That's a benefit, but it's going to make a giant lake. Well, is that a benefit or not? Well, if you like to fish and boat, it's a benefit. If you wanted to hike in the valley that they flooded, or there's an archaeological, things there, that's not a benefit. So there's often a big discussion on what's a benefit and what's a cost. And so the cost-benefit analysis is a little bit easier way to look at it because it's a ratio and it's a little bit more sensitive to when you move things from the numerator to the denominator or not. And so they teach you how to do this in this tutorial. In fact, it's interesting. They do the same thing we did in our chapter. You've got categorizing costs and telling you what's direct and what's indirect, what kind of things you want to consider, which I was amused at. They split them out, things that you might not think about, training costs or logistics costs, personnel turnover, and then they're telling you what steps to go through. And then the one that wins is the one that has the least cost for the best benefits, which I thought was interesting. And then there's also doing, hey, look here, focus on your core expertise. Just like we were saying, as in the business world. But the one I wanted to show you here was their little figure, how to do it. Yeah. So I told you to remember that figure. There it is. The same figure, do the assessment, do the analysis, just make a choice, recruit the suppliers, get an agreement and then monitor it, feedback. In fact, they've even got the same little shape on the figures. I thought it was kind of funny. And so the final thing they got on this outsourcing is at the end, they talk about monitoring, which our chapter didn't. And then they throw in an entire template at the end on a contract, typical contract format, and a plan, an implementation plan, a schedule. Where did I throw that there? So there's the schedule. So very interesting publication on how to do outsourcing. And this one, I promise you I'll do this one. All right, so this is a supply chain disasters from 2006. And several different disasters, but I wanted to show you just the table. Yeah. So here's their top 11 disasters. We'll leave the bottom one off, but the two I wanted to point out, some of them you saw, you understand, like maybe Webvan trying to automated grocery delivery. But two of them that are on there are Cisco and Nike, which were two that were on the top 25 now, which I thought was interesting. So they clearly, supply chain was a real issue that they were dealing with and wrestling with, but they were able to recover quickly. Obviously, within a few years. And then the other thing I wanted to point out was, if you read them, what happened? Okay, we got GM in the 90s investing in robots. We've got Adidas investing in a warehouse system. The Denver airport in an automated baggage handling. Toys R Us can't do deliveries. Let's see, Cisco was too much inventory. They had $2.2 billion write-down. Nike was a planning system, IT. So you can see what is making them fail in the supply chain. Two major things: overinvestment in an automated, like one of them had the Adidas automated warehouse, and the IT. A software issue. For example, the Nike, software-related issues, $100 million loss in revenue, and then the software company. If you read the description, the software company blames Nike. Said they didn't implement it correctly. And the one up here, let's see, one of them, I forget which company it was. It's an interesting write-up. One of the companies, the software they were using, that company went out of business. So you can see these disasters. First, they're since it's about a 2006 report, they're back in the 90s and the early 2000s. They were IT related and automation related. And I think now that business has changed, we're getting a little better at that. We've gotten stronger capabilities, or we understand don't automate this or automate that. But still, to me, it's a warning. Watch out, be careful when you make an all-in-one decision. And one of the things in that previous paper I was looking at, one of the successes they pointed to were organizations that implemented supply chain changes progressively. And so, be careful making a giant leap, I guess, is what the point is. But the other interesting point to me is that these two were able to recover and show back up on the top 25, even though they were on one of the 11 disasters. And Cisco had a $2.2 billion write-off. That's incredible. But they were able to recover, and that they were able to recover and still invested in supply chain. Clearly, they thought it was it was important back then, important enough to go strong, make a disaster, make a failure, but still recover. Important enough to come back up and be on the top 25 list. It's interesting. Come on in, Alberto. Are you ready?
Hey, how you doing?
I am fine. Just about to finish up. I was going to show them. Let's see. I want to show you this one more example, and we'll be done. All right. So this is that same example on the cost of goods ordered. The same type of example they did in the view graphs. but they've got the math in it, unlike the view graphs where they just quit. So I wanted to show you. So they've got the original thing with the sales, the cost of goods, the pre-tax earnings, the inventory, and the total assets, and they calculate your profit margin, that over that, and their return on assets, which was that over that. So if you want to know what the math is, oh yeah, you can look here and here and see, yeah, they've done that over there. Okay, then they say, look, we're going to have a 10% savings. So they took 10% off of the 30 million here. So they got a new pre-tax earning that directly went into the earnings. They saved 10% on the inventory as well as their claim. So now their total assets went down 10%. And so now they calculated a new profit margin, same way, and a new return on assets, again, that divided by that. Saw a giant improvement. And then they ask you, well, if you just tried to achieve that same improvement in sales, what would you have to do? So they're going to go back up here to their total sales and say, what do we have to do to this sales to realize this much of an improvement in our earnings? And so they go down here and they calculate, okay, with the current profit margin of 10%, what they originally had, and we want to increase sales, we've got to increase sales 30 million to be able to save 3 million. And so again, they're trying to make that point. Look, we shaved 3 million off of the cost, which had a direct $3 million impact to our earnings. But in order to generate that through sales, since our ratio was 10%, we have to generate $30 million in sales. A lot more difficult problem. Now, there's no reason why you can't do both. Increase sales and cut back on your costs, but still, at least this one has the numbers in it. Yeah. And there's a couple more I posted online if you want to look at them. These last few are just like these two are another these same decision analysis things, same sort of thing where you've got the weights times the score. Oh, but this one did have, this one or was it that one? I believe it was this one that had to fall into the score categories. Let's see. No, it either was. Remember which one of the ones had? Yeah, I believe it was this one. Number 6 had the category, the scores. They gave you a table to evaluate the scores. So yeah, if you want to look at that, they basically had each category had a range. So you had the scores. You got a 1 or 2 or 3 in the score, where this was better and this one was worse. And they just had a range of values, a percent delivery on time or cost. If the cost was some level A to level B, you scored a 1, and that's all they were doing. C to D, or it would be B to C, and C to D, and all they were doing had a table that if you fell within this range, you got this score. They're trying to give you an idea on how you can create these scores rather than just rank them arbitrarily. They were trying to give, if you formed at a certain level, you fell in this range, and then you got these scores. I think it was that one. Let's see. There are problems here. I'll tell you which one it was. If I can get to it here. Number 6, yeah. So it was this one. So it picked these scores based on where each of the things fell in a certain category. Yeah. So that's just wait if you want to look at that one. So I guess I promised you before I go. I promised you a midterm, didn't I?
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And I've got it made. I wanted to look at it one more time before I turned it out to you. But I heard Enrique is asking you to get something done. 2 weeks, right? When we come back. Now, did we decide to meet on Good Friday?
I think we just linked the other class.
Okay.
Just the lean class. So
But I'll give you the midterm, but then it's only 14 questions, they're mostly just discussion, a little, tiny little calculation here, but I won't make it do the same time as his, that's not a good plan, and so, since this is the first, I'll just make it do like April 1st or whatever, the first, that's, I'll pick that day. And so, and if you got a problem with it, since that's the only test, the other things are homework, and even if that's a problem because of these other assignments, let me know. I mean, obviously, it's our one test, it doesn't really matter, I'm just picking a day, but April 1st, I don't know, is that even a Friday? Yeah. We gotta use that day.
Figure it out.
Yeah. And if that's close to, if that's close to Friday, you bring it to class, I'm not stressed, or you can email whatever you want. But I'll email it out to you after I look at it one more time. I finished making it up last night, and I hate to send things out that I finished making it up at night, because sure enough, I'll look at it the next day, well, that was a stupid question. Nobody can answer that, or that question doesn't make any sense, so I'll read it and email it out to you all. Again, if you got a problem with it, or if the due date corresponds with a bunch of things Alberto gives you, just let me know. We can move this one. Anyway, so that's it. So I guess, so I'll be quiet on the Good Friday stuff, right? It'd be better that way.
There we go.
Yeah, so we got spring break, so I guess it'll be 2 weeks then.
Yeah.